Hi, everyone. Welcome to the California Avenue podcast. I'm your host, Unconventionally Black, UB for short. And this is a Black-centered space and place where all are welcome and where we discuss unconventional topics unapologetically from lived experiences and perspectives. I'm joined today by my producer, PortiaDRoyale. Say hi.
Hey, y'all.
And we are going to be talking about culture vultures. If you're not familiar with it, I'm talking about culture appropriation. So just so we're clear, and yeah, there's a common understanding when we're talking about culture appropriation. This is what we mean. It's the act of taking or using things from a culture that is not your own, especially without showing that you understand or respect this culture. Also taking an aspect of a culture, not knowing the historical implications and trauma associated with that culture, and refusing to do the research behind it. And if we're going to talk about appreciation, we're going to talk about, just the opposite of that. So yeah, let's get into it. So Portia, what do you think when you hear the word culture appropriation? What examples come to mind for you?
I think by definition, it's exactly what you described. It is the antonym of appreciation. So when I think also as far as examples and what culture vulture, culture appropriation entails, I think for, of course, our community, the Black community, I think symbols of Black culture, right? So the symbols will be cornrows and box braids, dreads, hip hop, R&B, bonnets, do-rags, multiple chains, other accessories like hoop earrings, multiple rings, teeth, gold teeth or gold tooth, and reels, and then a snapback hat put off to the side, like the style in which we wear it, laid edges, slang such as Lord and Child. And then, of course, the Black physical aesthetic, right? So the curvy figure, the big butt, the big breasts, high cheekbones, full lips, tan skin, kinky and curly hair. Those symbols are very representative of our culture. And so I would say the appropriation of that is not just taking a liking to it, but taking it on as though it's your culture and not referencing its origin, which would be the Black community, where, we've developed this or we've naturally grown those things. We're known for that globally. Mm-hmm. That would be appropriating those symbols.
Yeah, definitely. I agree with that. And I love just like how many examples you give, because there's so many levels to it. Mm-hmm. And there's so many ways that, since we're talking about the Black experience, there's so many ways that Black individuals have contributed to the society and have gotten no recognition, no pay, dehumanized for it. Like there's so many different levels to the disrespect and the tomfoolery. And I like that you mentioned music, because that's like an aspect that I think of. And Elvis Presley being someone that's super high praised in culture, and doing the work and learning how he's really just an OG culture vulture. He took that style of music and took that from the Black community, which is already known historically have been doing that style of music for a long time, and then brought it over as its new thing, rock and roll. And it's like, well, Black people have been doing rock and roll. And he got all the praise for it. And that's where we think of the king of rock and roll. They think Elvis Presley, but he ain't it. He ain't the original one. Um, and I also have this other example, like music wise. I think of cultural appropriation as like an example, like not understanding the origin of where it came from, not acknowledging it, right? So I think of the trend. There is a trend, the sanctuary trend, where people, just in case you don't know, people were um, using a very known, like, well, gospel song in the Black community to give, I guess, insight as to all of their problems that they've experienced and how, like, they think that I guess the idea behind it is to show all the things that they've gone through and be like, and I finally learned my lesson. And every time I watched that video, I don't know why, but I was like, man, this shit is triggering. Like, I don't know, this doesn't feel right. When I see Black people do it, I'm like, okay. But when I would see someone who wasn't of our culture, I was like, why is this triggering me? And I think it's because of my own experience, but also it's that I have no idea if you fully understand what you're representing. Like, you're quick to hop on a trend, and like in real life, you could be like, fuck that nigga. Like, but it's like trending, so I'm gonna hop on it. And there's a lot of trends on Instagram now where I'm like, and they don't reference the Black creator who created that content for that trend. So that's kind of like my point at it, not saying that people can't like gospel music. They should. It's a beautiful thing. But like the origin of that, and do you really represent what you're representing, what you're putting on for that moment? Are you actually about it? I have another example. When I was little, I went to my parents, I should say, would send me to church, like church camp. And I grew up in predominantly white areas. And so we'd go up into the mountain. I'd be the only Black girl, mind you, mostly the only Black person. It was kids from different schools coming to this place in the woods, camping. And each time we had like this church kind of like Bible study, they would put on "Do You Want a Revolution" by Kirk Franklin. Girl, the way that these people were in there, whoa, they even had like, I was like, where am I? Where am I? That's what it reminded me of. It's like all these people I know haven't done the work to understand this. And yeah, it was just like a fun thing in the moment. And it's like, but do you understand? Do you understand the ridicule and the pain that comes with, or why even gospel was created in the first place? So
and that form of gospel, I'm sorry to cut you off, I wanted to add that form, because other communities can have gospel, but the way in which the Black community expresses it is very unique to our community. That is attempted by other communities to be emulated and not have the same level of execution, but taking interest without, of course, again, going back to referencing and understanding within that reference what it means. But I just want to add that in there because that's very true.
It is, yeah. And you and I both know that originates from like old Negro spiritual hymns, right? So it's interesting to see that put on just for a moment, when it's a full experience and you only get to be in it for a little bit. So that was my experience with it.
and an experience. I believe that is, if I'm remembering this fact correctly, that was also during a time within the slave days where it was an expression of hope, communicating across the community in a very challenging time. And so for that to be put on as, you know, this moment for likes and views or attention, and it not be genuine, and it not again reference its origin and the facts, and acknowledging the experience, it is very much culture appropriation and highly offensive.
Yeah.
Just wanted to add that in there.
Yeah, no, thank you. I appreciate that. I agree. Yeah, so I actually have a video, and this is actually an example of someone arguing for culture appropriation. So yeah, I'll let you guys check that out.
Say white girls shouldn't wear braids. I'm not saying that because I just don't want you to wear my hairstyle.
Whenever I see people going off about cultural appropriation like this, I have one thing to say, and that is cultures are not owned. Cultures have always been and will continue to be shared. Which means Kim K can do this, and Hailey Bieber can line her lips for goodness sake without being called out for cultural appropriation. They're not appropriating anything. And yes, people are going to make profits off of things that have been traditionally black, just like black people profit off of things that have been traditionally white. This girl's gonna have a real rude awakening when she goes to some place like, I don't know, Puerto Rico, Mexico, any of the islands, and finds out there's a lot of non-black people running around with braids in. When you complain about cultural appropriation, you're essentially saying black people do your things, white people do your things, and no crossover. I'm getting hints of Jim Crow racism. That actually goes toe-to-toe with this girl in the newest episode.
Man, I'm out. Nigga, you don't know what the fuck you talking about, my nigga.
I mean, where do you go from there?
Oh.
That where do you start, you know? The thing that really stood out to me was her identifying this division, right? But not identifying the source. Almost as she was reversing it to say that black people are causing division as if it hasn't already pre-existed.
Ooh, yes.
And then referencing one of our many historical challenges when it came to race and experiences within that, by comparing us, which she didn't phrase it that way, but comparing us having issue with our cultural symbols not being referenced to our community, but being taken and assumed in other communities as their own, to that of Jim Crow, which was like, how do you even compare those two? Because in Jim Crow, there were actual laws that prevented both equity and inclusion, as well as actual diversity among many different race groups. But specifically speaking to the black and white race group, it was extremely divisive and very, very well laid out at that time that you are not to walk on the same sidewalks, drink from the same water fountains, enter in the same doorway, sit at the same tables, hold hands with people that are not of your race group, even necessarily talk to people that were of other race groups. So you had to really be mindful, because it could cost you your life, where it's not costing you your life when I say, hey, I don't like that you are sitting up here with this super deep tan and trying to say that you were naturally born that way, when we know we're the tannest people of all the races, and we know that you're trying to emulate us. Or when a person is trying to wear box braids or cornrows, and they're trying to say, oh, well, you know, this isn't specific to, you know, just this group, this is also of our community. Like, you just make things up as you go, and we're just saying, hey, cut the bullshit, you know, you got that from us, just give us Give us that recognition, acknowledge its origin, because in acknowledging its origin, you help to lift up other communities, and in this instance, the Black community. And I did want to read from a quote that I got from Alexis Williams from The Medium, which is an online blog publication. And she says, cultural appropriation will always hurt someone mentally and fiscally. And furthermore, she continues, when white men and women use our culture, as in the Black culture, in ways that only further themselves, Black people lose that opportunity to have their hard work awarded and recognized. These opportunities are integral in the growth of our community because we have to work so much harder due to these socioeconomic barriers. And she continues with, cultural appropriation would be a whole different ballgame if Black people were given the respect and pay that we deserve. But that is not the case, and every time our ideas are appropriated, it's that much harder to reach success. Lastly, I wanted to add, because that's end quote on hers, I believe that also understanding that culture is tied to our identity, right? Furthermore, the characteristic features of everyday existence, such as diversions or a way of life, shared by people in a place or time. So understanding it's bigger than just the surface. There's a deeper meaning, there's a deeper experience, and therefore those are reasons why we are so deeply affected by such vulturing. You know, if that's a word. Is vulturing a word? But you get where I'm going.
Yeah.
I think that it's extremely important to say, and to sum that up, that, you know, just give credit to where it's due. It doesn't hurt you. It doesn't cost you. Spread that love and spread that wealth. Promise. It's not like you ain't gonna never make another dime.
Yeah. I mean, I feel like that was thank you for reading that. That was definitely summarized the experience. Which is exactly, it's not just surface things that are representative of the culture. Yes, there are aspects of that are representative of the culture, but that is not all of the culture. And when you're using appropriation and trying to reword it as appreciation, that's all you're doing, is that you're taking something and just making it very very surface. But it's also,
and minimizing its significance.
Yes.
Its significance not just within the culture, but to the world culture, right? Like our culture as a Black community impacts the world. It influences the world. I feel all too often, like we spoke about earlier, about, you know, trends and things. The other added layer to this is that, you know, when we do it, it's not professional. It's not clean cut. It's not, you know, of the caliber that's accepted, right? But as soon as another culture, and especially white, and their race group takes on our aesthetic, our symbols of Black culture, then all of a sudden it's you know, on trend, it's a fad, it's exciting, it's exhilarating, it's professional, it's the next innovative thing. But when it's us, it's always under. And so also, I think in the grand scheme of it all, acknowledging that aspect, and why is that, and why does that continue to be a thing, that Black people can't bring something into the fold and it be seen just as beautiful as it is, like dreadlocks within the workplace? Why is that seen as, oh, that's dirty, and that's, you know, that's not a professional look? But then a person that is white does it, and it's like, oh, that's so cool, that's so innovative, that's so edgy. I love your approach to this new age of corporate America. And it's like, and I've actually seen that where I was like, that's a thing. You know, like, interesting. But then you bypass the one and the origin of that experience in hair. And it's like, how does that happen? Because it's not that they haven't seen it before and that they don't know. So that's really challenging, at least for me, to both witness and in my own ways experience.
Yeah. And I mean, I think the reason, well, I know the reason why is because of just how exactly what they're trying to write off as appreciation now, which is just using our appearances. That's not the first time that America has had a history of taking our appearances and then using it in a way that dehumanizes us.
Our likeness.
I'm sorry?
Taking our likeness. So that's anything that's representative of us. That could be our face.
Yeah, like ancient mama. Like
yeah.
ancient mama. Like,
yes, that's
like that.
Taking her likeness and spinning it for their success.
Yes.
Disregarding its origin. Absolutely.
Which is interesting because it's been canceled now. It's not a thing anymore.
And has it?
Ancient Mama's canceled.
And the pancake mix?
It's not called Ancient Mama anymore because of that. Yeah. So I think it's interesting that they're still trying to use that and not connect the dots and see that they're still doing, now that smells like Jim Crow. That is direct from fucking Jim Crow. And then you're trying to say, but we appreciate you guys. We're taking all the stereotypical things, right? Because like, even though, chains and like laying our hair back and stuff like that, we can't say that that is representative of every Black person, right? But those things are used to stereotype us, right? And dehumanize us. And that's how they call us hood and gangsta and things. But yeah, it comes from that. It comes from that Jim Crow dehumanizing period. And prior when Americans have had a history of taking our aesthetics and making fun of us. So when you have a mentality that has been rooted in making sure that we stay where they brought us into, as in like lower, I think that's the mentality that carries along. And I think that if you really are trying to show appreciation for a culture, one, you're not going to get mad when someone from that culture is going to say they don't like what you're doing. You would ask questions. You would be curious. You'd want to understand. So sometimes, honestly, I feel like when people get on this, cultures are supposed to be shared. Certain aspects of cultures can be shared. Certain aspects. Food is shared. That's a culture thing that's shared. Everyone goes out, gets tacos. Everyone goes out, gets soul food. That is a shared aspect. But when it comes to things that are tied to trauma, like being represented in a certain way as a Black person, you can't say that is appreciation.
Oh, yeah.
What were you gonna say?
I was saying share. Like you're not sharing in that because that's not a background and culture and experience. That's not an experience that you also will ever have because of how society is structured. And that's what I was talking about earlier about the backwards logic in that. is that it's saying these people do this and these people do, and it's like, but that's how it was structured, is that we're supposed to do this. Why do you think that there's so many different cultures and not just one culture?
Yeah.
We're forced to create our own identities with other identities of the human race, right? We're not considered the human race. We're considered, okay, this race is Black, this race is white, this race is Hispanic, Latino, this race is. That's how it breaks down, and that's how society was structured by the colonizers.
Yep, it wasn't us. So
so you can't gaslight and put it on us as though we started that, and then have questions. You start this from inception. And then now that we get to a point in time in history, because history is still being written, we get to a point in time in history where things are a little bit more different and we're able to have our own identities and speak on it. And then you want to say, well, you can't have it this way. Well, who said we wanted to have it that way? That's how it came to be. Because of the people that you're trying to protect that are already protected, because they created this structure.
Yeah.
So that's where I was like, okay, this conversation should have never happened. Just saying, period. Should have never happened. It should never been an argument.
Should have got on camera and recorded that shit. That's just something that shouldn't have happened.
Embarrassing.
Because it is. And it's the reason why it's like infuriating, because there's no logic to that argument. And as soon as you went into that appropriation is saying white people do your things, Black people do your things, and no crossover, it's like that was just a false statement in general.
That's not even the definition.
That's not what anyone.
It's not the definition, but it's hers.
Like, exactly. Who said that? Who said that that's what that was? You said that that's what that was. And that's what other people say that's what that was. And I wonder why, in my thinking, my thought process, it's because you want to continuously benefit from doing this. And you don't want any talk back. You don't want people to say, hey, I don't think that's culture appreciation. I don't think culture appropriation is okay. I think it's offensive. It's because they want to be able to do that. They want to continue this cycle. I don't think that this video was made with the intention of creating a solution, but to say like ignorant shit and spread false narratives. Right, but also to be like, don't have an opinion about this. This is how it is, and this is how it's gonna be. In other words, that's what it felt like. And there was just, there was just so many things she said in there that was just so wrong. Like, non-Black, she's gonna have a rude awakening when non-Black people, when she goes to Mexico and sees non-Black people running around with braids in.
It's like that's not even the point. Like, you missing the entire point. We are not unaware of other cultures wearing braids. You see it in popular culture, right? You see it with celebrities. You see it in advertisements. You see it everywhere. Even when you go to the beauty supply, you'll see other women that are not Black wearing braids or wearing wigs, lace
or crochet.
There you go, crochet, all of that. And that is very, 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 very in alignment with the many other symbols, right? As far as like those approaches that these other people are taking on for whatever reasons, whether it's advertisements or they enjoy it, whatever, we are aware of that. I think we're getting really far from the point of this entire discussion is that we're not being acknowledged. We're not being acknowledged. It's okay that you admire our culture and you want to emulate it, but emulate it respectfully.
That's not it. Sorry. I'm sorry. I just wanted to interrupt. That's not it. That's not how you show respect for it. That's not how you show that you're like understanding.
Oh, and break that down. What's not how? You're showing
like by only like by only wearing our aesthetics.
Yeah.
That's never how you're going to be able to. You're not showing appreciation. That can't be understood because there's not a conversation had. And that's where appreciation is showed, when there's actual dialect and like exchange of understanding. And it can't be appreciated if you're just throwing it on. Like,
you got to have that dialogue. You got to open up that space for the community in which you admire to give you the feedback necessary for you to show that appreciation.
Yes.
You are not appropriating. I totally agree. Just want to make sure that didn't get lost in the fold, you know?
Yeah, no, thanks for asking.
Yeah, it's important. It's important to identify, you know, where you go wrong in that. And that is where you go wrong is you don't ask questions, you assume. You assume, well, Becky did it, so that means I can. And it's like, no, Becky fucked up. You know what I'm saying? I wouldn't follow Becky. You know what I'm saying? I wouldn't do that. I would have your own mind to go and ask the necessary questions and get involved in educating yourself in your own time, like going and investing in Black history. Because you can find facts there.
Yeah.
This is the importance of having friends that are outside of your race that can give you that feedback on whether or not your approach to wanting to appreciate the culture is good or not. You know, you have to have these. This is where, you know, diversity is so important, and we all need that in our life, even Black people.
Yeah, exactly. Thank you so much for engaging in this conversation with me, Portia. I really appreciate your perspectives and your insight. So if you guys want to show appreciation for a culture that is not your own, show up intentionally with caution, curiosity, an open mind, and an open heart. This is how you truly learn from individuals in that culture, and that is how you show appreciation. Speaking up against the mistreatment of minorities is how you show appreciation. Spending your privilege responsibly to uplift ethnic minorities is how you show appreciation. If you would like, you can go support Brittany Rose, who is a part of the video that I showed in the very beginning. She just had a little segment where she was going to talk. If you want to go and support her, go ahead and check out her Instagram page. She makes natural hair products. And there's plenty of ways to show up. I hope that you guys enjoy the process. I truly, 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 truly hope it expands your knowledge and it reestablishes the beauty experience when you show up compassionately. Thank you guys for joining us here on California Avenue Podcasts. I'm your host, UB. I hope you enjoyed today's episodes. We drop episodes every Friday at 1 p.m. So please like, comment, subscribe, and hit the bell notification to stay updated on all future episodes. Until next time, peace out.